She had always believed that love had the power to heal. At 32, a single Latina woman with long, wavy, dark brown hair and soft, medium-light skin, she often looked around her quiet apartment and wondered, what if I could give my love to a child who needs it most? The decision had not come overnight. Growing up, she had seen children in her community shuffled between homes, never knowing stability or safety. The thought haunted her. She wanted to change that, even if just for one child. But as she stared at the foster care application on her kitchen table, fear crept in. Was she strong enough? Could she give children what they needed, even when the world had failed them? Her heart answered before her mind did. Yes, because love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, again and again. The day she was approved as a foster mother, she stood in the doorway of the small bedroom she had painted soft yellow, her hands trembling. The bed was neatly made, a stuffed bear waiting on the pillow. For the first time, her apartment didn't feel empty. It felt ready. And soon, she would discover that the journey of fostering wasn't just about saving children. It was about discovering the deepest parts of herself, facing challenges she never imagined, and learning that family is not always defined by blood, but by love that refuses to give up. What does it take to open your heart to a child who has known nothing but loss? This is her story. A story of courage, resilience, and the boundless power of a mother's love. The knock on her door came earlier than expected. Her heart pounded as she wiped her hands on her jeans and hurried to answer. Standing there was a caseworker with tired eyes, and by her side, a small boy who looked even more exhausted than she did. He was 6 years old, with messy dark hair and oversized clothes that hung loosely on his fragile frame. His sneakers were untied, his shoulders slouched as if carrying a weight far too heavy for a child. He clutched a plastic bag that held all his belongings, a worn t-shirt, a toy car missing one wheel, and nothing else. The woman knelt down slowly, meeting his eyes. They were dark and guarded, searching her face for danger, for judgment, for rejection. Instead, she smiled gently. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm so glad you're here." The boy didn't respond. He stepped inside cautiously, glancing around the unfamiliar apartment. When he spotted the yellow bedroom, his eyes lingered on the stuffed bear waiting on the bed. For a moment, his tough exterior cracked. But when she motioned for him to sit, he shook his head and muttered, "I don't need it." She felt her heart ache. This little one had learned too quickly that needing love could mean disappointment. She didn't push. Instead, she sat on the floor, giving him space. "That's okay," she whispered. "The bear will wait for you, just in case." That night, long after he had fallen asleep curled up in the corner of the bed, she sat in the living room, tears in her eyes. She realized fostering wasn't about instant hugs and gratitude. It was about patience, trust, and proving, day after day, that love was safe here. The first weeks were harder than she ever imagined. Every morning she greeted him with a warm smile and a plate of pancakes, hoping food might feel like comfort. But he often pushed the plate away, muttering, "I'm not hungry." At school drop-off, he clung to silence, his tiny hands stuffed into his pockets, refusing to look at her. At night, she would hear him tossing in bed, whispering in his sleep words she couldn't understand. Fragments of fear, anger, and heartbreak. Sometimes he woke up screaming, and when she rushed to his side, he shoved her away. "Don't touch me." His voice cracked like glass. Each rejection cut deep. She had expected this to be hard, but the distance between them felt like an unscalable wall. Some nights she sat at the kitchen table, her head buried in her hands, questioning if she was strong enough. Maybe love wasn't enough. Maybe she was failing him, but then she remembered her promise, to never give up. She decided that her love wouldn't come in demands, but in quiet consistency. She packed his lunch every morning with little notes that read, "You are special," even if he crumpled them without reading. She left the bear on his pillow, even if he threw it on the floor. And every night, even when he turned his back to her, she whispered at the doorway, "Good night, sweetheart. I'll see you in the morning." Because deep down, she knew children who had been hurt the most needed proof that love wouldn't vanish when they rejected it. Love had to stay steady and unshaken. It happened on a rainy afternoon. The sky was heavy and gray, and the steady sound of raindrops against the window filled the silence of the small apartment. She sat at the kitchen table, paying bills and sipping cold coffee, when she noticed him standing in the doorway. He held the stuffed bear she had placed on his bed countless times. For weeks he had ignored it, sometimes even kicked it aside. But now, his small hands clutched it tightly against his chest. His eyes, usually guarded, flickered with something different. Hesitation, mixed with a fragile hope. "Can I sit here?" he asked softly, his voice barely louder than the rain. Her heart nearly broke. She swallowed the lump in her throat and simply nodded, pulling out the chair beside her. He climbed up slowly, hugging the bear, his legs dangling off the chair. For a long time, he didn't speak. He just sat there, listening to the rain, stealing nervous glances at her face. Finally, in the quietest whisper, he said, "Do you think the bear gets scared at night?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "Sometimes, but that's why he's here, so he doesn't have to be scared alone." For the first time, his lips curved into the faintest, shy smile. He looked down at the bear, holding it tighter. And in that small, fragile moment, she knew the wall between them had cracked. It wasn't trust yet, not fully. But it was the beginning. Just as their fragile bond began to grow, reality came knocking. One evening, she received a phone call that left her trembling. The caseworker explained that the boy's biological relatives had come forward, requesting custody. Nothing was certain yet, but the possibility was enough to shatter the fragile calm she had built. She looked at him playing quietly on the floor, rolling his toy car back and forth, the stuffed bear never far from his side. Her chest ached with fear. For weeks, she had fought to earn his trust, to show him love wasn't temporary. Now, the thought of him being pulled away felt unbearable. That night, she tucked him into bed, and for the first time, he let her sit on the edge of the mattress. His eyes lingered on hers before he whispered, "You'll still be here in the morning, right?" Her throat tightened. She forced a smile, brushing his messy hair gently from his forehead. "Always," she whispered. But when he drifted to sleep, she sat in the dark living room, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. She knew the truth. Foster care was never about keeping children forever. It was about giving them love for as long as they needed it, even if it meant letting go. Still, her heart whispered a prayer. Please let him know he is loved, no matter where life takes him. The uncertainty lingered in the air like a storm cloud. She tried to stay calm around him, hiding her worry behind gentle smiles and steady routines. But children notice more than adults think. One morning, as she stood at the kitchen counter, staring blankly at her untouched cup of coffee, he walked in holding the stuffed bear under one arm, his small brow furrowed. "You look sad," he said softly. She froze. For weeks, he had barely acknowledged her emotions. Now his eyes were fixed on her, searching, almost protective. She knelt down to meet him, forcing a smile. "I'm okay, sweetheart." But he didn't believe her. He placed the bear into her hands, clumsy and tender. "Here," he whispered. "He helps me when I'm scared. Maybe he can help you too." Her breath caught in her chest. The boy who once pushed her away was now offering comfort. Tears filled her eyes as she pulled the bear close. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. That simple act, a child sharing his only source of safety, meant more than words could capture. It wasn't just trust. It was love. Fragile but real, taking root where pain had once lived. In that moment, she realized that no matter what the future held, she had already changed his life. And he had changed hers too. Progress was never a straight line. Just when she thought they were moving forward, the past would come rushing back to him like a wave. It happened one evening after school. He came home quieter than usual, his toy car clenched in his fist. When she gently asked what was wrong, he exploded. He threw the car against the wall, his small body shaking with rage. "Everyone leaves!" he screamed, his voice breaking. "Don't say you won't. You will." The words pierced her heart. He wasn't angry at her. He was terrified. Terrified that this safe place was just another stop before more heartbreak. He kicked the chair, shoved the bear off the table, and curled into a corner, sobbing uncontrollably. Her first instinct was to cry too, but she steadied herself. Slowly, she sat on the floor a few feet away, not touching, just being there. "I'm not leaving," she said softly. "Even when you're mad, even when you're scared, I'm here." Minutes passed. His sobs quieted into hiccups. Finally, he crawled toward her, trembling, and buried his face in her lap. Her arms wrapped around him carefully, as if holding something fragile and sacred. He clung to her, fists tight in her shirt, letting himself be comforted for the first time. In that raw moment, she knew, love doesn't erase pain overnight, but it shows up, stays steady, and proves itself, until fear slowly gives way to trust. After that night, something shifted between them. The wall he had built so carefully began to crumble, piece by piece. Trust wasn't instant, but it was growing. Fragile, precious, undeniable. One Saturday morning, she found him in the kitchen, standing on a stool, trying to pour milk into his cereal. Half the milk splashed onto the counter, but when he turned to her, expecting scolding, she only laughed softly. "Looks like we're making breakfast together." For the first time, he grinned. A real, unguarded grin that lit up his entire face. The sound of his laughter filled the room, and her heart swelled. She realized how rare it was for him to laugh, how sacred that sound truly was. Later that week, she walked into his room and found him drawing. On the paper, with clumsy crayons, was a picture of two stick figures, a tall one with long hair and a small one holding a bear. "That's you," he said shyly, pointing. "And me." Her throat tightened. She fought back tears, kneeling beside him. "It's beautiful," she whispered, brushing his hair back tenderly. For a child who once believed no one would stay, this simple drawing was more than art. It was a declaration of belonging. Every hug, every laugh, every picture drawn was proof. Love was slowly stitching together the wounds of his past. And she, once afraid she wasn't strong enough, was realizing she was exactly what he needed. The knock on the door this time felt heavier. When she opened it, the familiar face of the caseworker greeted her with a polite but serious expression. The boy froze where he was, clutching his bear, his wide eyes flicking nervously between them. They sat in the living room, the caseworker explaining updates about his situation. Relatives had once again expressed interest in taking him in. Nothing was decided yet, but hearings would be scheduled soon. The boy's face paled. His little hands gripped the bear so tightly his knuckles turned white. "I don't want to go," he whispered, his voice shaking. "Please don't make me." Her heart cracked. She knelt down beside him, holding his trembling shoulders. "Sweetheart, no matter what happens, you are loved. You will always be safe with me until the very last moment." and nothing will ever change the love I have for you." Tears filled his eyes as he buried his face in her arms. For the first time, he clung to her not out of fear, but out of trust, believing her words, even in the uncertainty. That night, after the caseworker left, she sat by his bed until he fell asleep. She stroked his hair gently, whispering promises to the quiet room. She couldn't control the future, but she could control this moment. And this moment, filled with love, was enough. Weeks passed, and the uncertainty remained, but something inside the boy had already changed. He laughed more, slept more peacefully, and for the first time in his young life, believed he was worthy of love. One evening, as they sat on the couch reading a bedtime story, he rested his head on her shoulder and whispered, "I wish I could stay here forever." Her eyes filled with tears, but she kept her voice steady. "Forever or not, my love for you doesn't end. You will carry it with you wherever life takes you." In that moment, she realized something profound. Fostering wasn't about possession or guarantees or permanence. It was about planting seeds of love that would grow inside a child long after they left her arms. Even if the world changed tomorrow, he now knew safety, trust, and belonging, gifts no system could take away. As he drifted to sleep, she looked at him and thought of every mother watching, every woman doubting her strength. Love doesn't need to be perfect to change a life. It only needs to be present, steady, and unshakable. She kissed his forehead softly. "You are loved. Always." And so her story reminds us all. Family isn't defined by blood, but by the love we choose to give. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Join us here at Brave Motherhood, where we celebrate real stories of courage, resilience, and unconditional love. Stories that remind us all of the incredible power of a mother's heart.